NSFW, what is the worst thing you've ever seen or heard in a game of truth or dare? I got dared to use a zipline that nobody had likely touched in decades. So we climbed up a mountain while wasted in the middle of the night. Found that my friend was not bullshitting and that it actually did exist, used our zip on it and sailed over a 1500-foot drop. And then the thought occurred to me that I had no way of getting back, and I had not even brought a flashlight with me and had absolutely no knowledge of part of the mountain I was on. So I basically stood in place for 7 hours or so. I don't know if that was the worst, but it was definitely the most stupid, especially considering that the whole point of the game was to get with some girls who were no longer in a partying mood after I disappeared into the night. One of my mates said he had his clock pierced and nobody believed him, as heads sometimes exaggerate / make up stories. To prove it, he put a straw through the piercing, and then another of my mates was dared to drink his drink through the clock straw. It was hilarious and weird, and both parties regretted it immediately. Was playing truth or dare with a few friends, my best friend and my best friend's wife. When they married, they were both virgins by choice, from a traditional household. We're having fun, and it comes to my turn. I ask my best friend's wife truth or dare. She answers truth. My friend and I would always joke about arsos despising anal sex and being disgusted by it, so I asked as a joke, have you ever had anal sex? Yes. She answers. Her husband turns bright red and says no, we haven't. The two leave shortly after. Turns out she was a traditional virgin but had lost her anal virginity back in high school. We didn't really talk after that. A bit late, but my friend answered a truth and told everyone that he has 2 buttholes. Long story short, I've seen it and the guy has edit. What I've learned is there are many damn people with 2 assholes. Color me surprised. When I was 17, I worked as a summer camp counselor. The week of our orientation before the campers arrived, all of the counselors were down by the lake when we started the game of truth or dare. Everybody was pretty normal except for this quiet girl that was a Disney freak. Everything Disney. Pajamas, sleeping bag, hair ties, t-shirts. All Disney, all the time. Being 17-year-olds up in the woods, our truths and dares turned sexual pretty quickly. After finishing my dare, I turned to her and asked truth or dare. Truth was the reply. Okay, have you ever had sex? I asked. Yes, but only with one person. My father. It started when I was 12. Game. Fking. Over. Edit. For the people asking for a follow-up, many of the female counselors and naturalists spoke with her that night and the next morning. Her father had been jailed a few years prior to her telling us. One dare was to bake cookies whilst nude, but then we were out of sugar, so a follow-up dare required a second person going to the neighbor's door in underwear to ask for a cup of sugar. It worked and the cookies were delicious. Grad student neighbors didn't even bat an eye. Fairly tame but seasonally timely. In high school, a group of friends were playing 2D drunk after a party at my house. One of my friends had a crush on a girl and was trying hard to get with her. So when it was her turn to ask him, he suavely stated dare. She told him to put one of the lights adorning the nearby Christmas tree into his deck hole. He did. She was disgusted and ended up loudly hooking up with another friend in an adjacent room, like soul crushingly loud, while he sat on the couch nursing his burnt meatus. 'Tis the season, I guess. One time I was dared to kiss this girl and I passed because I was in a long-going relationship with a girl I really loved 3 years, and so I did this instead. I poured really hard rum on my hand and lit it. I had to keep it lit for as long as I could. Once it got too hot to handle, I had to put it out. Part of the dare though was to put it out with the watermelon next to us. So I proceeded to punch it open with my flaming fist and stick my hand in it for 3 long annoying sticky hours. I was at a truth or dare party in college. Everyone pays $5 to get in and gets the same allotment of Monopoly money. You bet people to do things and accept bets, and whoever has the most at the end of the night got to keep the door. Greatest party ever. I just dared girls to make out with me all night until I ran out of money, so I had to accept a couple dares. Someone dared this other guy to eat a zebra cake off my ass and dared me to drop tro and allow him to. I figured, him not eating it, no big deal. It wasn't that terrible, but it did get my ass all sticky. I also felt like I couldn't really complain because of what the other guy had to do. I wasn't participating, but there was one weird night when one of my daughters had a bunch of friends over. My wife and I were sitting downstairs while they were up in her room apparently playing Truth or Dare. Over the course of a couple hours we experienced some pretty weird stuff. Two of my daughter's friends came running downstairs and started twerking before running off again. My daughter came down and said, "Mommy, Daddy, I'm pregnant. I'm pregnant because I'm a horse." Later we heard a splash outside by the pool and a minute later a couple girls come running into the house wrapped in towels and dripping wet. I had to go tell them to not jump out the window anymore and that pretty much stopped the shenanigans. At age 18, while at a friend's house digging around looking for a lighter, he finds an adult toy in his single dad's room. It was one of those hot pink, sparkly dildos with the rabbit thing on it. Something that didn't really seem like a guy toy, and it was in the spare nightstand, so we assumed maybe an old girlfriend's or something. Fast forward a few weeks later, his dad is out of town. There are a few of us over playing Truth or Dare, and I dare him to do something to his dad's dildo. At first his face turned 10 shades of red embarrassed in front of everyone else, but then he manned up, grabbed it with a Ziploc bag worn like a glove, then rubbed some cut open habanero peppers all over it. This was a Friday night and his dad was supposed to be back Saturday. Saturday night rolls around and he, our other friend, and myself are all at his house, quietly, as the one sneaking in, and I had been drinking. This was roughly 8-ish. As the other friend and I stood in the driveway we hear the most god-awful, blood-curdling scream. The type of scream that sounds like someone being murdered. We dash in just in time to meet our friend in the hallway as he flies into his dad's room. His mom, dad's ex-wife, is in the floor but naked, curled up in a ball screaming her head off. Apparently his mom and dad had been screwing around behind the family's back. A hospital trip followed, and after spending the night in the not knowing WTF happened, they ended up coming out in the open, getting back together, and then remarried. That was 12 years ago, and they are still together. For their wedding present I gave them a jar of habaneros that they still don't understand to this day. Edit. Wow, this really blew up. I don't know what to say. I feel like I just won an award and didn't have my speech ready. Thank you. Ryan, if you are out there, your mom's burning bush has become mildly famous. I never knew Reddit liked a good fiery love story. I once witnessed a grown white man with a full beard swap clothes with a 16-year-old Chinese girl. We all lost a bit of pride that day. It wasn't really a dare, but a drunken friend said he'd show us how much of a man he was. In quick succession he chugged about 250 milliliters of Jack Daniels, snorted a line of salt, and poured vinegar into one eye, and squeezed a lemon in the other. Everybody laughed at him, because he had to run to the bathroom crying to wash his eyes. It's not that bad comparatively, but it was still unpleasant. In 4th grade, we played Truth or Dare at my birthday party. It was all dudes, which made it kind of weird. One friend dared another friend to get nude, which was really weird. So my pal begins a striptease as we all beg him to stop. He got down to his stained briefs, dude did not let that deck drain all the way, and was just beginning to lower them when we heard a scream. My 7-year-old sister had just walked in the room to see a scrawny self-proclaimed street rapping gangster / meteorologist busting out his hog. He dove into his sleeping bag and didn't talk to anyone the rest of the night. We decided video games were a lot more fun and immediately ended the game. My friend denied anything ever happened the next day. Edit. Clarification on the street rapping gangster / meteorologist bit. Copied from another reply. This dude was obsessed with weather in elementary school. All he ever talked about. He was a white kid who moved to our very white city from a very diverse low-income city, so he talked like a thug while going on about cold fronts. He ended up becoming a meteorologist, though, so hey, good for him. Went to a kinky elf party once for Christmas. Good mix of a crowd, until we all got shoot-faced. Some guy got dared to be blindfolded and get blown by some random girl. Guy at the party who had always denied being gay decided it would be funny to blow him. That's how my friends Tom and Chad met and got married. One of the popular girls in my high school admitted to regularly pooping in her hand. She took truth and was asked to tell an embarrassing secret or something like that. She said that she was always embarrassed whenever there was a splashing sound in the toilet when she went to poop, so she'd always poop in her hand and then slide it quietly into the water. She went from being a popular girl to being the hand poop girl pretty quick. Edit. Thank you for the gold, kind stranger. Ed, shake your hand, but I've learned that it's best not to. No telling what kind of shoot you've been touching. A friend of mine back in high school was asked where the weirdest place he had ever masturbated was. His answer was a train, which really isn't too weird, still pretty weird, but he then, for whatever reason, didn't stop there and told us where he put the mess. Afterwards, when then train staff came through, he freaking ate it again. He just told that last part without anyone even asking. An entire room of girls had to rub a 5-35 gel on their vags. There was silence, and then screams. By the end of the game, there were a bunch of naked people in a hot tub basically freaking each other. It had evolved from a harmless game to a full-on orgy. Someone hits us with a flashlight, and one girl says, "Get that fucking light out of here, you fucking piece of shit." Not the best thing to say to the cops, I'll tell you. When asked to present a deep secret about themselves, one of the really hot girls, this was high school, straight up admitted to using whipped cream to get her cata and their tongues like sandpaper to lick her. The awkwardness escalated exponentially like a nuke in the room, seeping into the very core of every living being present. During my time in the Navy, I ended up at a party with a group of maybe 10 people. It was a mixed group of males and females, also Navy personnel and civilians. After a few hours of normal party hanging out, the game started. It went downhill fast and ended with a code naked wrestling tournament. My friends and I loved this game in high school. One day I came up with the best dare. You had to be blindfolded and someone would kiss you and you'd have to guess who it was. Well, eventually everyone just wanted to play that game, so we did for a few rounds. There were like 8 or 9 of us, so one person would be blindfolded and everyone would vote on who had to kiss them. It was always a good mix of genders, guy/guy, guy/girl, girl/girl. Welp, it got boring eventually because everyone was just doing a light peck on the lips. So we invented round 2. Round 2, you had to kiss them for 3 seconds and actually move your lips a little bit, like a real kiss. Round 3, you had to make out with them for 5 to 7 seconds. Round 4, you had to use your hands and touch their face and shoulders. On particularly wild nights we would get to round 5, where you would have to actually straddle the person and make out furiously with them for 10 seconds. It was a great game though, and to be honest it taught me how to make out properly, because at the end we rated every ounce kissing. When I was 16 I played Truth or Dare whilst really drunk. Bad mistake. I got asked what the most humiliating thing I've ever done was. Well, drunk me thought telling people about the time I had a wank and managed to unload so hard I covered my own face was a good idea. Never lived it down. Well, my 4th grade teacher was a couple months pregnant. She would often leave the class for 15 to 20 minutes at a time to use the bathroom or something. Me and my classmates took this opportunity to play Truth or Dare. It started with very simple things like saying a bad word out loud, but then it evolved into us just taking off our pants and dancing for the girls every time the teacher left. We never got caught. Warning. Sat, we were teens, high on hormones. I dared Mick to put his pet gerbils down his boxers. He did cause he had a crush on me. One of them died of fright, the pregnant female one. It still haunts me. If I could change one thing in my life, it would be that. I was dared to hump this big tree in the front yard. Not that bad. The problem was that I was wearing short shorts, and I ran to the tree and jumped as high as I could. I started humping, but while doing that I slid down the tree with my bare legs. Both of my thighs were severely scraped up.